Why don't you share why you're so excited tonight?
I found out that Dixie knows I'm alive. No, she was the lady that inspired me to hike the AT. I watched her videos probably about a year before we started, and it was pretty inspiring to me. So she was a little bit of a rock star in my mind.
The kids would always joke about how Cammie would sit on the same privy that Dixie sat on. And
I know.
I was all excited about that.
I know. They like to make fun of me.
Well, you were also doing some sort of happy dance because tonight we're smoking.
I know. I have a slice of pumpkin pie. We're smoking big cigars. I got a glass of sangria. It's a good night.
I kind of want my own ashtray.
Okay.
Can you
I can get one.
make that happen? Oh, you know what else I want?
What?
While you're up is my spittoon. Can you grab that for me, please? I went through all this trouble to get...
Is it?
It's right there somewhere. I went through all this trouble to get a spittoon, and I figure I should use it. While you're up, we'll start our intro. Duh! I always do this.
You're listening to the Fight for Together podcast.
Okay, I'm not... Cammie left.
I'm coming.
I'm not sure what she's doing.
I'm getting you your ashtray.
Well, it doesn't need to be spotless. The other thing I realized, I was listening to another podcast this week, and I realized all these like podcasts have these intro things where they say, "Hi, I'm Ben,"
And I'm Cammie.
and you're listening to the Fight for Together show, which I guess the intro says, but then, there's usually some like quippy line that says like, we've been together for 20 years and we have 6 kids, and we're here to talk about sex, dating.
We've actually only been together for 18 and a half, but
Okay,
Who's
together.
married.
Yes, you are
Together.
just profiled me and sat on your elitist high horse because I said together for a very specific reason, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that for 1/2 of 1 second.
Yeah.
I'm in kind of a different phase of my spirituality, and I just realized that a lot of the times I say, like when I introduce myself to someone, I'll be like, "Oh, we've been married for 18 years."
Mm-hmm.
It kind of uses marriage as this almost like class system.
Mm-hmm.
Like where we came from, it was super cool to be married. It was super uncool to be not married if you're together.
And then really uncool if you're like divorced or
like
something.
morally, yeah. Divorce was like pretty big no-no. And, it's almost like a way of morally sizing people up when you're like, "Oh, are you married?" And it's like, "Well, how long?" And I go, 15 years. I'm like, "We're 18
Right.
years." And then these couples will be married for like 40 years. And everyone just like shits their pants about it because they're like, "You guys are doing it God's way." And
Even if they like hate each other and have the most codependent relationship ever.
usually they don't hate each other, but quite often it is like a very codependent, like they've like basically what they mean by being married for 40 years is just not getting a divorce. Like the bar is pretty low. It doesn't need to be a healthy relationship, thriving, growing, whatever. Their kids might hate them, but they're like still waving this flag that's like, "We're not divorced, we're married."
Whereas you might have a couple that's not married and have like an awesome relationship, like way better than someone who's been married 45 years.
Which I'm super down with marriage. I think it's really cool, but I don't think it was ever meant to be a moral status symbol.
Yeah.
Sorry if you're just listening to us. We're lighting our cigars right now, which I'm always a little bit finicky around with this, like.
Microphone.
Well, yeah, because it's like.
And our
very
microphone
melt.
just went up in flames.
So, like I was saying, because I puffed my cigar to get it started, it's a really crucial point right now. We've been together for 20 years. So I'm just in this phase where, like I said, I'm down with marriage. That's super cool. I'm glad I'm married. But also, like, I'm okay with, I just want to experiment with not bragging about it.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And so far, it's not working very well.
Well, I'd like to think I'm all progressive, but I think I still like have. I'm just so used to identifying myself that way.
I know, me too.
And getting the applause for it.
Here, we can arrange that. Hang on.
Yeah, where's my applause?
Okay, Cammie has been married for 18 years.
Yeah.
Cammie thought about... Oh, Cammie on our honeymoon said that she didn't want to be married. That's a true story.
Oh, hey, can I have the matches, please?
Yes. Okay, fuck. This is supposed to be our intro, and we're already 5 minutes in. Okay, so I'm Ben.
I'm Cammie.
We've been together for 20 years, and this is our podcast where we talk about marriage, sex, parenting, adventure, but mostly sex.
No.
I think it feels like we talk about it a lot because I don't hear it talked about seriously by other people.
Yeah.
But really, it's a pretty...
Like one episode every 3 months of talking about sex is like, whoa, you guys talk about sex a lot.
Yeah, it feels like a lot to people. Yeah. Unless you're doing like jokes. I don't know. Okay, jeez, we're never gonna get through this intro. That's our intro. You were excited about Dixie. You're excited about big cigars. You just had pumpkin pie. Well, where's the pumpkin pie?
It's gone, baby.
And I'm gonna try and the only way we could really get down here today, we were supposed to go swimming, but we didn't with the kids, and I was really tired. But I was like, you know what? I was actually the one that influenced the cigars tonight. I'm gonna try and drink tea, but I brought a beer just in case. I've been trying to consume less calories lately. We're just not quite walking 14 hours a day like we used to.
No, we're not.
Today, we're going to talk about a topic that it's really coming up a lot for us. It's like, it comes up more than once a day, 5 times a day maybe. And it kind of started with this podcast I listened to a couple months back. And you guys have heard us reference Richard Rohr. He's been influential to our growth, worldview, and spirituality lately. And he said this fascinating thing. He said that he teaches this class, or he taught this class at a seminary or something or other. And the first thing he told his students is that there's like 3 boxes. And the first box
of developmental, like,
yeah,
like spirit, especially like the spiritual development,
some sort of maturity level or something. The first box is order. Is this right? Yeah. We should have like studied this crap.
No, I
but
think
we're not.
It is right.
The first box is order.
Yeah.
The second box is disorder
or deconstruction, and
the third box is reorder. Now, there's all sorts of other labels you could apply to these things, but what happens quite often in people's spiritual growth is they grow up and like everything fits in these nice little boxes. This is the order box, and it's like you see the world a certain way. It's nice, it's great, it's simple, and then you start growing up, and then you're like, oh crap.
It's, for example, seeing these guys are bad. These guys are good. Like, especially when you're a little kid, everything just fits. You know, there's not a gray area.
Everything's very simple. And then you grow up. And for a lot of people, this is like adolescent phase. Like, you rebel. And you're like, screw the rules. I'm not going to follow the rules. The rules don't matter. Nothing matters. You know, and you realize that maybe not everything you were taught was true. And maybe some of the stuff you were taught was false. I guess that's the same as not true.
Let's emphasize that.
It's, yeah. And there's more than one way to live. And, you know, you're just exposed to new things.
Right.
And a lot of people stop there.
Yeah.
But
so that would be like the deconstruction stage or disorder.
Yeah. So you just like grow up basically anti whatever it was that you were. And the third stage is reorder. It's where you actually take the things that were important that maybe you learned in the first stage, and now you're living them differently, but you're still applying order to your life.
But it's not so black and white to you, and there's way more. I think there's way more openness of mind.
There's maturity.
Yeah.
Now, like a seasoned maturity where you're like, okay, yeah, it's just natural.
Yeah.
So.
Which, by the way, I think there's not just one time necessarily that you go through all those stages. Like I kind of think there is some moving away from the stage and maybe never really going back to the first box. But I think, I don't know if it's quite so simple as like one time in your life you move from box 1 to box 2 to box 3.
Well, yeah, because there's so many different areas that we're constantly developing in. I mean, let's go back to sex because that's what this podcast is about, right?
It's what you want it to be about.
Sexually, I feel like we've been maturing more in the last 2 years. But like with other things, like business leadership, for example, that I was more on that process like 8 years ago. So we're just in different levels at different stages. So okay, here's a few things that Richard Rohr said very briefly about these different stages. One is none of them are bad. They're all necessary. Like you can't go to level 3, box 3, skipping box 2. So we all kind of like hate the adolescent stage, or even with ourselves where we're like doubting and this is like confusing, and other people might be labeling it as rebelling or like going too far, the pendulum swinging, this and that. But it's actually a really important stage. You can't get to step 3 without step 2.
Yeah.
Another thing he said was it's important to do these boxes in order. So a lot of us, like we do box 1, and let's just speak for us, like the examples that we would use in our own life. For us, probably, well, for me, the biggest one is like religion. I grew up and religion was very black and white for me. It was like to make God happy. Here's a list of do's, here's a list of don'ts. And it was all like very simple. Like, and in high school, I'll just use my high school self. I thought it was good to wear Christian t-shirts, and I thought it was bad to party. And there's like 5 more examples I could give, but they're all basically, don't swear, party, drink, smoke, have sex, wear Christian t-shirts, go to youth group, tell people about Jesus.
And maybe, I don't know if it's fair to say this, but I think a lot of times what comes with box 1 is a lot of fear around making sure you do the right things, whatever those things are.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
maybe not necessarily.
I don't think always, but I think I agree. I think that they're
at least in my experience, that seemed to go hand in hand.
Because it's like when it's that simple, it's really like if you don't do this, you're gonna get your ass kicked in one way, shape, or form, either by God, or with parenting. We do box 1 with our kids all the time. It's like, don't go in the street, or I'll kick your ass. That's what I want to communicate to Rainier.
Right.
Like,
because if you don't, that car is gonna kick your ass
cars
even
are
more.
Evil. You're gonna die. Stop. That's like, it's very simple.
But we don't communicate in that way about the street with Falia because we don't have to.
We're like, hey, streets are great. Like,
just look both ways before you cross, okay, honey?
So, okay, what were we saying there?
So we did the 3 boxes.
Oh, well, I was going through my own personal story. Yeah. So do you want to talk about your box 1 growing up?
Yeah. Oh, very similar. Box 1 for me was there was a right way to live. Like God was kind of this kind of brought down the hammer, was kind of the parent above my parents, kind of looking down at me, and would be really disappointed if I didn't do A, B, or C. And I also think there was a lot of just fear for me. I mean, that I would mess up, that I would do something wrong. And I don't even think I knew exactly, could articulate what would happen to me. I guess the worst thing would be hell for me in box 1. But before that, it was just this feeling of oh, my parents or God or whoever is displeased with me. So that's how I feel about
And that
monks.
was also marked by heavy church attendance by both of us, because it was like that was the primary way that you expressed devotion and knew that you were on the right track.
Yeah, and that there wasn't another way. Like you can only see there's kind of one way to live, and if you're outside of that one way, then you must not love God, know God, be a good person or something.
Box 2. So box 2 was like we got married. We were still we got together. I don't want to claim my moral.
Where's the
high
buzzer?
ground.
Where's the buzzer?
Is there a buzzer?
I don't know.
This we can always just use this. It's kind of like generic.
Or there's the alarm.
Oh yeah.
There
Okay,
you
that's
go.
good. Anytime we say marriage,
We're gonna
we'll
P.
buzz us.
P.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, just practicing here. Don't want to get the alarm. Okay, so we were together. We're having babies, and we kind of got like uninvited to that Presbyterian church. Like they didn't really like us
That
so
we've
much.
been going to for like 7 years at that point.
And so we kind of stopped going to church, and then we're like, oh, this is weird. Like we actually felt okay.
But even before, like when we first got together and started having babies, both you and I didn't read our Bible. And that was like a big deal to us because we grew up with read your Bible every day. If you don't read your Bible every day, you must not be a Christian. You must not be a good person.
We started drinking, smoking. And I'm talking like drinking, period. Not even like...
taking sips of alcohol.
Yeah, we never even don't even forget about drunkenness. Like
if anyone knows about Mike's Not So Hard lemonade, and maybe Canada was the only one that like carried that, but
it's a real thing. Mike's Not So Hard.
Is it still?
Oh, I don't know if it's still real, but it was a real thing.
Mike's Hard, you at least used to, so that was us.
And I think even more recently, there's things that we've experimented with that I'm just not ready to talk about yet.
Yeah.
On this vlog, where it was like we were like, oh crap, like
this is a podcast, not a vlog.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It gets confusing around here.
Well, I'm not ready to talk about it on the vlog either, but if we were to talk about this stuff, we're still, even though we're like okay with it, we think we're okay with it, we're like, it's still kind of scary.
It's almost as if we still want to be at least a little bit in the first box. Like there's, you know what I mean? Like it's like, it's like you want your cake and eat it too. Like,
but I feel like I've embraced second. Yeah, I don't know. So, but all this kind of experimental stuff. I know for you started cussing like a sailor.
What?
And I think it's a little bit like
although
ridiculous.
I don't know if a sailor, I've never heard. Is it more or less or?
It's more.
It's like, okay. More.
I mean, it's an analogy. Mm-hmm. But you're like, shit, fuck, shit, bitch.
I'm a little...
It was like someone that just learned
Oh, you mean when I first started?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you meant now. I'm like, oh, come on. I've crafted my craft a little better than that.
You're a little better, but it's still like really inappropriate. Like...
Inappropriate?
Yeah, like anything happens, you're like, fuck it. And it's like, whoa, you just go from like 0 to 10. Like, fuck it should be like, that should be like you have a strong distaste for something, not like.
Well, what about like Gary Vee? Like every fourth word. I mean,
you're not Gary Vee. He's an exception. He does it very naturally.
Okay, we'll take this one off air because this is getting under my skin.
You want to be Gary Vee? Let's talk.
No, but I feel like I'm getting. I mean, maybe it's true. Maybe it does sound unnatural, but I feel
Here's
like
my point.
I feel like my history. You're taking that into account.
Yes.
Like if someone just met me, would they think the same thing and they didn't know anything about me?
Here's the point. I think in 10 years you're gonna swear less. I don't think it's gonna be as novel.
Probably. Or I'll just at least swear differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be stage 2.
All right.
That's reorder. Where you're actually like using language appropriately.
I guess that's fair. Okay.
Maybe I should be using my own examples, but that's how I feel. Okay, so forget about all that. We just walked through a very simple thing about us, but this is where this gets really interesting to me. There's just two examples.
Are we still in deconstruction? Box 2?
No, I just passed the whole thing.
Okay.
Do you want to spend time in box 3?
I don't know.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Just 1 minute though. I want to get past this stuff.
I mean, it's honestly, like, I must not quite be there yet, or maybe I am, but it's harder for me to articulate box 3, because I feel like it's still kind of fuzzy. Like, for me, I believe in God. I believe he's good. And I want a relationship with him. But, and you know, I'm not saying that those are the only things I believe spiritually, but I feel like everything else in a way is a little up for grabs for me. And at least thinking through stuff and not being so black and white about it.
Okay, well, that's the negative way of putting it in a way. There's a little bit a lot more you don't know, less confidence you have. But I feel like our peace of mind is much higher.
Yeah.
I feel like our ability to love and receive love is much higher.
And you'd see all that coming from this third box. Okay.
I feel like our ability to synthesize information from outside sources is much. I mean, we were very, like, first box people, or the first box stage, it's very threatened by new information. So, you know, take high school me. If I saw someone underage drinking, I'd be like,
shit, fuck.
I'd be like, you know, that's wrong. That's bad. Like, bottom line, end of story, no questions asked, judge, jury, executioner. I wouldn't have said they're going to hell necessarily, but I might have guessed they were.
Right.
I mean...
Or they're at least on that track.
Yeah. So really, like, as I see myself then, I was kind of a judgmental asshole.
Right.
And now I just don't feel that way about people and things anymore. I'm like, wow, it's complicated. You know, I don't know why you're drinking. Like, I know there's some laws about it. I know we live in a culture that looks this way and this way about it. And even the Christian culture I was raised in has certain viewpoints on it. But I've come to, like, learn there's more than one way of viewing it. And I'm not as confident anymore. Okay, we need to get out of this third box and go to some examples.
Yep.
So these are just, like, two, like, little tagline stories that have resonated with me as, like, how these kind of categories have been helpful. One is, one box is not better than the other. And you can't prevent people from going through their own boxes.
And I actually think getting to that third box allows you to see that. Because I think if you're in box 1 or box 2, which I'll be honest, I'm not quite there yet with viewing this way, but you're able to see those categories as not bad and have a lot of patience for the people who are working out of those categories. It's
really good to have rules.
Yeah.
But if all you know is rules your entire life, it doesn't work out very well.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you skip the rules. So actually, I'm going to pause where I was and go back to this. In regards to raising children, what one of the conversations we've been having a lot is it's super easy because we see ourselves as in box 2 or 3 in certain categories to want to go directly to box 2 or 3 with our kids.
And I think at least parenting young kids, I think it's actually harder for me now to not be in box 1 because things are so much more simple with, like, parenting little kids and saying, like, okay, it has to be.
With kids, it needs to be box 1.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I'm having to reel myself in and be like, okay, what is the best thing for my child?
Yes.
Not what do I believe necessarily.
Yes. So we believe box 3 in some areas, and it's never black or white. I don't want to make it sound like, okay,
right,
on July 17th, we transferred into box 3. There's no ceremony.
No.
But we've noticed our beliefs are more trending that way in some major areas. And with our kids, most of our kids are very much in box 1, which is like, you show up to breakfast at 8 o'clock. And if not, you pay 50 cents or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's just like a rule. And we don't tell them why. Now, hopefully they're going to grow up and realize, what? There's other parents that don't charge their kids 50 cents? And that I hate my parents' way of doing that. Like, that's great. That's fine. That's very natural.
Yeah.
But we can't skip that. For now, we have to create rules that create order, teach them right or wrong, teach them obedience or safety or whatever it is that we value. And the best example I have, you kind of gave away my punchline already, is with watching movies. So for a while, I realized, especially through 12-step groups, that there's no such thing as a 100% good person or a 100% bad person. So I was hanging out with child molesters, and I was like hearing these guys' stories, and I'm like, these are the guys that I was told are society's worst that I'm supposed to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. When I heard their stories, I was like, oh, you're kind of like me and everyone else I know, when we're all honest.
Right.
And the people that I, like, time and time again, the people that I thought were the heroes on this planet, the Lance Armstrongs, the whichever pastor is in the latest scandal, we all realized they're not who we thought we were. So my kids would like be watching a movie and they'd be like, is that a bad guy or a good guy? And I'd be like, well, it's complicated. Everyone's good and everyone's bad. Mm-hmm. that's box.
Or if you had their story, you would.
That's box 2 or 3 bullshit. Really, when they're like, we're watching Batman and Joker's causing mayhem in the city and destroying everything.
Right. He looks all scary and is doing
and they're
all
like,
these
is he a
bad
bad guy?
things.
And I'd be like, yes, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Knowing that someday they're going to grow up and realize, wait a second, Batman has some bad too. He's not 100% good guy.
Right.
But for
and
now,
I have some Joker in me. Uh-oh.
But for now, it's okay to just say that's a bad guy.
And I think it gives kids security, and they need that security to know, like, okay, where's the line? Like, where's bad, where's good?
But along with that, I think I'm super excited for my kids to change stages in various areas of their life, to see them actually rebel against us. And that's what's weird, is I think that the narrative I was told about teenagers is stupid teenagers are doing stupid things, and they're just rebelling, and it's like the most frustrating, annoying thing as a parent, because if we teach them in black, they're going to do white. If we teach them church, they're going to do not church. If we teach them not church, they're going to do church. If we try and get them to do sports, they're going to become video game players. It's like they're always like reacting against everything that we value. And it's like, well, yeah, that's like a part of them growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think if you're still operating out of box 1 as like for yourself,
if you've never left that,
then some of your teenage kids are going to like frustrate you.
It's going to be very threatening. And I felt like that in some ways with your parents, because you chose different external lifestyles early on. And I feel like it was threatening in some ways. They were like, oh, you don't care about us because you're doing something different.
Right.
And I've even felt like that with our kids, where it's like, I can't think of examples right now, but.
Well, just like, I can't either. But like if they want to hang out.
They want to hang out with their friends more than they want to hang out with us.
Right. But the more you understand, oh, this is just a developmental stage. It's not bad. It's even good.
Yeah.
It's even good.
You want to see your kid. You don't want to see your kids stay in box 1.
No.
But you also don't want to see them stay in box 2.
Right.
And it's very easy. So what we've heard is box 1 is filled with conservatives. These are like people that are like, they base their life around the rules. Mm-hmm. And once again, I believe that's a terrible way to live for the long term, is to base your life around a rule set.
And this isn't just Christianity. Like, this could be
societal rules, political rules, whatever
other
it is.
Religions.
You're just like, life is as simple as this rule set. And I think even for those that are of the religious or Christian bent, which is, our background, obviously, rules are always there to facilitate relationship. Like, this is what was so crazy about when Jesus said that thing, like, because he was a notorious rule breaker, and it pissed everyone off, all the rule followers, the box 1 folks. And the most important rule of all, well, I don't know if it's the most, but an important one that's built into the creation story account was to rest on the Sabbath, okay? To rest on the 7th day. God himself did it. And like I said, it's in the first 2 chapters of the Bible. And Jesus was like working on the Sabbath, which is like a huge no-no. And he says this crazy thing. He said, is Sabbath here for man, or is man here for the Sabbath? And he was saying that this rule is here for you. It's here for relationship. It's not, you don't serve the rules. Right. The rules actually serve the people. So he was like, the rules have their place, but when you dedicate your entire life to following them and identifying yourself by them and judging others who don't measure up, they become really shitty.
Yep.
And it's a very fragile way to live because you can't really appreciate or hang out with other people that follow different rule sets.
Right.
And it's because it's very threatening. You're like, well, I thought, we're supposed to be married, so I can't, if you're not married, I can't hang out with you.
Right.
Okay. So that's, one example with kids. The other thing I've just been thinking about is how, like, I would give people advice and they wouldn't follow it. And I would feel like they were, I don't want to say like stupid, but like making a dumb choice by not doing what I thought they should do. When really, I have no idea what box people are in various stages of their life. Oh, camera just went off. And maybe the best thing for them to do is completely ignore me and what I know is best for my story. Because they're maybe in box 1 and they're going to box 2 and they need to experience it. I can't give them a shortcut.
Right.
So I've given people advice like, oh, don't get in debt, don't buy houses. What I consider like good advice. But there's no like, I don't know. It's kind of assuming that we're all in the same place and that whatever place I'm in is the best place. Whereas the final thing he said that really I wanted to talk about now is a full maturing. If you find yourself in box 3 in any area of life, it is very inclusive of your previous boxes. So you wouldn't look back at our childhood, for example, and say like, dude, that childhood sucked. Those rules are so lame. And just like mock our life back then because it's what got us here.
Right.
You can't skip it.
Right. It provided the framework.
Yeah, you need to give credit to the role it played in your life. And for the children that aren't raised with a box 1, they're raised in a chaotic lifestyle where there's no rules, no structure. They spend their entire rest of their life trying to create and find structure.
Right.
So this thing it's really easy to point the finger at our past and be like, that was so lame and stupid.
Yeah.
And people that exist there are lame and stupid also, I think.
Yeah.
It's easy to say that.
Yep.
When, if you are in box 3, it's great. It's awesome. But they're almost like building blocks, I think, that build on top of each other.
Yeah.
That if you pull the first one out or if you ever make fun of it, you're making fun of your own foundation.
Right. This is all very deep, and I'm just thinking.
Yeah, and smoking and drinking, so I don't know if you're still on this planet with me or what. What else do you want to say about this topic? I mean, we do have some questions we need to get to, but...
Yeah.
Let's bring it home.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I think, yeah, you're always fluctuating. I mean, I think right now for me, it's really, I can see some good in how I was brought up, but it's very limited for me right now. Like, because I think I'm still in box 2 in a lot of ways, and I think it's also good to say like it's okay to be in the boxes as long as you need to be. I think that's going to be different for each person, but I think for me, I'm like working through, like, I think even like having anger over things, maybe how you were brought up, is part of being in box 2. Because in box 1, you think, at least for me, I felt guilty. So I never felt anger.
You're like really compliant personality.
Yeah.
So you were compliant for like a lot of people go through box 2 at 13. They start throwing shit around and swearing, and you're like, you were a good girl your whole life.
Yeah. Up until last year.
Well, what your mom says until you married me.
Well, that was the slippery slope. But yeah, so I think I am hopeful, like the more I grow, and I believe that I'm gonna grow as time goes on. I'm gonna find myself more and more in box 3, and then when I look back on box 1, which includes my family, my upbringing, I think I'll have a lot more understanding and patience and compassion, which are lacking now for me.
Yeah. But we don't want to be 80-year-olds living in box one, because we all know those old people that live off of like 3 rules.
Yeah.
And they're like, they apply those 3 rules to everyone on the planet.
And you feel like,
They're
is
like,
anyone...
You need to be a Republican.
You feel like, is anyone home? Like,
You need
hello?
to buy stuff made in America.
Yeah.
And you need to pay your taxes.
Right.
And it's like, then you're a good person. It was like Hulk Hogan, who's like, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and something. Lift your weights or something. I forget what he said.
Grow your hair long.
But that was like, that works for a certain age. Okay. It is time to go
Questions?
to the phone lines.
Whoa.
That was heavy duty.
Hey, my name's Kyle, and a moment that you guys shared at the resort that you can explain to us. I was turned on to you by my girlfriend Sandra, and we're both big fans of yours. Been watching you guys since you started the Appalachian Trail, and she was watching you before that, but that's when I started. Anyways, thanks.
Crap, did I miss the first part of the question?
The favorite moment?
Yeah.
Hey, my name's Kyle, and a moment that you guys shared at the resort that you can explain to us.
Okay, the question was titled Favorite Moment. Mm-hmm. So I think he's talking about our experience at the nudist resort.
Favorite moment at the nudist resort?
What was our favorite moment?
Oh, how do I pick? I think my favorite, I would call it experience, was breakfast. We would walk to breakfast. Usually, like, for me, it was scantily clad, like with a little bit of clothing on. And then we would sit down outside, and the server would come over, and we would order our food. And then I would just take my clothes off and be like, yeah, baby.
Well, I'd be like, yeah,
baby. And then we would eat our food nude. And then the server, you know, it was just, everything else was normal, right? Except we weren't wearing clothes. And then afterwards, we would just write out scripture. And I don't know, it was something that was normal in my day-to-day life that was totally not normal at the same time. And I loved those moments. That was one of my favorites.
It was really fun. I mean, I don't know what else I can say that we didn't say on the other podcast, but like I shared the moment when we walked out of the hotel room and got ice.
Yeah.
And we were naked. And normally when you leave your hotel room, you have to like get appropriate or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and this was like just not that. We had amazing sex that whole trip. I don't know. I mean, I partially know why, and then I partially don't. But, you know, as a whole, the thing that I loved about, we were talking about this with our therapist actually, and I was just like going on and on because I was like, you know, it was like a lab experience, like a spiritual lab where every day we're reading books about sex ed, listening to like podcasts about sexual theology and just philosophy and our changing belief system. And then we're like going out naked and we're like feeling actual freedom and weirdness and like watching shame that was existing. I mean, it was just like this full thing, and we're experiencing it together and talking about it, and just like, and then we're recording podcasts at night, just like,
yeah,
it was just like this full intellectual, but like really fun.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like
it was using all the parts of us, you know.
Hello.
Of like,
where's the? Where's that?
You don't want the crickets for that
No,
one.
I don't want the crickets. I want the.
Oh, okay.
That's what I want.
Yeah,
Using all the parts of us.
In the sense of, we had this physical experience we were experiencing. We had this emotional experience. We had like the environment was all catered a certain way, and then we had the intellectual. So it was like this petri dish of sorts of just being able to really, really sink our teeth into it.
All right.
Hey guys, this is Lindsay from Richmond, Kentucky. I love your vlogs and now your podcast, and I started watching right before you guys started your journey on the AT, and congrats on finishing that. It was so fun to watch. My question has to do with spiritual side of things, which I love how passionate you guys are about that, and it seems like you have a very strong, deep relationship with God. So I'm just curious, as you said in some of your videos, you grew up with a Christian background. What kind of things did you have to shed to get to where you are in your relationship with God today? And how did that process work? Thanks.
Thank you.
I had to shed box one in a lot of ways.
Man, that's a really intense question for us right now. I got two answers.
Go for it.
Okay, the first thing we had to shed is that living your life by any one cultural rule, if you're placing one rule at the top, and most Christians don't say they're doing that. They don't say like, oh, my most important thing is not to drink alcohol or not to have sex before marriage or not to be gay or whatever it is. But we actually function, that way.
Yep.
And even in the beginning when I said about marriage, how I identified as a married person, it kind of showed what was the most important to me. Like, getting divorced would be like catastrophic to my identity. So we had to like basically let go of a lot of rules that I think had taken the place of God. Because rules, like I said, I think they're great. Like I think, the world can't function without them and relationships can't function without them. But when one rule or even a series of rules become the main thing, I guess I've realized how destructive it is. The second thing is we've had to let go of people and community, like community as a whole, that did not no longer fit with the area that we were growing in. That was by far the hardest thing. And in a lot of ways, I think community actually let go of us. So that, in a way, it made it easier. It was like super hard, but it actually made the break where I don't think I had the courage to do that. Like I was actually hanging on to these relationships that were actually dragging me down in terms of my progress and growth. And I had always learned that you hang on to these relationships. They're the most important thing to you, and you're not going to find any other relationships, which has not been true.
Yeah. I think one of the things for me was being able to separate who I thought God is, separate God from people in my life or used to be in my life or my family, or that I think gave me these imprinted things of this is who God is. And once I was able to kind of let go of that, I could create my own view of what I think God is by my experiences, past, present. And yeah, I think that has opened up a whole another world for me. And it's helped me to love God more, because the God that I used to believe in, I think was harder for me to actually be close to.
All right.
Yep.
Hi, Anya here with another question for you. You guys may have already addressed this in a podcast that you haven't published yet, but you alluded for the past, year or 2 years about relationships that have been broken and changed in your lives. And I'm curious if that's because of how you guys have kind of come out and been uncut and more honest with a whole bunch of things, or if there were other factors. Whatever level of detail you want to go into. I don't want to pry, obviously, but I think that this is relevant for some of the listeners. And I know that Cammie did some grief curriculum around it, and so I'm particularly interested in that too. I think that's really, grieving relationships is really applicable to listeners.
Pry, Anya, pry. Yeah.
That's a good question.
That is a great question.
Because we did allude a ton, especially when the shit was really hitting the fan maybe not the last year, but definitely the year prior.
So what was her main question? Her main question was,
why did we
let go of them, or did they let go of us, right?
And why? What was the catalyst for that?
Yeah, so we're going to spend some podcasts telling this story at some point, but the long story short, the biggest shift for us happened when we were actually told to jump through some hoops. That's the kind of derogatory way of putting it, but that's how we see it now, by our spiritual community, and we were doing it. We were like, we value these relationships, we want to do it right. And we're jumping through these hoops
because there's people that were complaining behind our backs, basically.
Yeah,
about
so we're like,
us.
we want to make these relationships right. We want to own it. We want to do the right thing. So we did, but after a while, we realized that no matter how many hoops we jumped through, it was never going to be enough
for this community
to make people happy.
Yeah,
that our belief system no longer fit in with to make these people happy anymore. And there was this actually conflict between following who we thought God was and who we were starting to believe this community was, and the two were not overlapping anymore, which I didn't know
that was going to happen,
that they were two separate things.
Yeah,
because I don't know, I just thought it was like Christian community is, if you're following God, you're in Christian community, and this is what Christian community looks like.
Right. It's all we knew.
So but what I really think happened, if we really want to be honest here, which we might as well.
Go for it.
I think that people knew we would not sell out. And I think they started to sniff that out a while ago. When I say people, I'm talking about actually a few specific leaders. But, like, because I think that's what we were being asked to do. Not explicitly or consciously, but it was like, hey, get on board. We all say and do this thing. You don't have to believe it fully, but you have to at least act it. But you can't act out of line.
Right.
And we couldn't do that with integrity.
Right.
And I think there was a time period where we were like coexisting with it for quite a while, because I think people thought, oh, well, they're going to change, or they'll come around, or they'll stay in this kind of like, we can pound this square peg in this round hole for a while and it'll fit. But after a while, we were like on go mode still. And we're like, we don't feel like that's a right thing for us. We can't honestly and with integrity stay there. And I think then it was like, you're a threat and you're dangerous.
Right.
I think some switch flipped. And like I said, I'm going to get to my story, but 1 second, I mean, literally 1 month, we are being bought front row tickets to concerts. And the next, we're like being essentially excommunicated.
Yeah.
So it got chosen for us, and it was really scary at first. It was like, oh shit, like what's wrong with us? Like, it felt so, we didn't have any other friends. This is the people or community identity wise that we had invested our life into for the first.
That's where our therapist came in and
saved our ass.
Helped us be able to see which way was up.
So it was a very grieving process, which we'll get into later.
And I think it was called Grief Recovery, but
Grief Recovery Handbook.
Grief Recovery Handbook. And yeah, I mean, if you want a way to kind of more systematically go through your grief and process it, I would recommend it. I thought it was helpful in that way.
And I just want to emphasize, because it's really possible that people from our past life are listening to this, and even if they're not, we really don't want to talk shit about other people. But I feel like we had to let people go, but more importantly, I feel like we had to let relationship dynamics go. And we said, we are going this direction. We really, really want you to come with us, but we're not willing to interact with you in this way that we did before. That was working for a while, and it's just no longer working. And if they weren't willing to change, it meant letting them let go of us, really.
Right. I mean, I think we actually valued our growth over those relationships, which is a really controversial thing to say, at least in that type of community, because it sounds like, oh, like really? Like, isn't relationships the most important thing?
It seems like it's like a paradox or a conflicting, like you can't.
Right. But we would have rather not.
But I think a lot of church relationships are based on this codependent bullshit where it's like, you clap your hand for me and I'll provide you with inspiration. So I make you feel good, you make me feel good. It's not actually about following God in a lot of these communities.
Right.
And Richard Rohr, once again, shout out to Richard Rohr. One of his things is the only thing more dangerous than the individual ego is the collective tribal ego. Right. That he says that's the most dangerous thing on this planet is when you get a tribe believe in something that's like, you know, maybe not even wrong, but it's just like...
Because then people they're not actually thinking, they're just going along.
It becomes threatening. I mean, it's like, if you're a Nazi, but then you're like, I don't want to be a Nazi anymore, they kill your ass. Right. You know, and churches, unfortunately, aren't a whole lot different. We do it in nicer ways. We maybe won't kill you or have you arrested. But if you're like not on board with our thing, you find out what it's really made of. Okay, that... We could talk about that for a long time. Great questions, you guys. Really appreciate that. This is the first time that we got more questions than we have time to answer, so we're going to save some next week. We still have our answering every question, so we'd love it if you'd record more on the Anchor app.
Anchor app, yeah. We'd love it if we got to the point where we're like, sorry, guys, we have too many questions.
Dude, I would not love that. I get anxiety because I want to answer every one. I have this like check-off thing where I'm like, they're all important. So
to pick and choose would be hard.
Yeah.
But we're not at that place yet. We're not that famous.
Okay. Ending stuff. This podcast is available on iTunes and Google Play and all sorts of those things. We don't ask for anything. Like, we don't do any sponsorships. If you want to fund us for mostly our cigars and our equipment and just our life, you totally can. There's links there. No obligation whatsoever. Also, no obligation to like leave reviews or anything like that. Like, people say that on other podcasts, and it's like, I feel like people have better use of their time. We're not trying to grow, actually. But if you do think of someone that this would be helpful for, we would really think it would be cool if you would share that with those people, because, I mean, that doesn't just help us grow and kind of make our message land on the people that it should. It actually helps those people too, hopefully. So that's a way you can help us. Also, there's links where we put stuff. I don't know what was in this, but we'll put a link to a Facebook discussion group where I'm hoping that the conversation can go on about box 1, 2, and 3 and parenting and all that. There's so many ways we could take this.
And maybe we should link Richard Rohr's book where we even got those boxes to begin with, if people are interested.
So, I don't think that was a book. I think it was another podcast.
He references it, and that's probably true. So maybe we'll link the podcast.
So maybe I'll try and find that podcast and link it to that. I think it was called The Bible for Normal People, if I remember correctly. That was a long time ago, though.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Cool.
That's it. Well, thanks, guys. Another episode, and looking forward to next time.
Thank you for listening to Fight for Together. We'll see you next time.